are still some things that make us all the same. You, me, them, everybody, everybody. Everybody needs somebody.
So let's recap. The UN doth suck mightily, but you'd be mistaken in thinking I want to disband it without replacing it. It is the closest thing we have to coherence at a global level, and many of its problems are caused, often maliciously, by nation-states, particularly the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. However, it is appallingly unrepresentative, and like a fly in amber, it is forever locked in the past, a political time capsule from the 1940s. We are suggesting a virtual parliament elected by the people of the world, without power in the military sense, but imbued with a compelling moral authority. Here is how things currently look. The Security Council is the king, ostensibly listening to its constituency, the nation-states, but really beholden to the 5 permanent veto wielders. The General Assembly is off to one side, essentially useless. On day one of our new parliament, things are much the same, but the global parliament is instantly more important than the General Assembly. It can say some nasty critical stuff about nation-states, international organs and whomever pisses it off. It's virtual, so it's simultaneously nowhere and everywhere. It is beholden only to the people of planet Earth. Nation-states, international bodies and NGOs sit up and take notice. In several decades this could be the endgame. The UN organs atrophy, handing off their functions to the global parliament. We settle into a tiered structure, a base of nation-states, a core of regional federations, and an overarching global parliament, each layer dealing with the relevant issues at its level. In principle, enshrining the concept of subsidiarity into global law. Subsidiarity is the principle which states that matters ought to be handled by the smallest or the lowest competent authority. The Oxford English Dictionary defines subsidiarity as the idea that a central authority should have a subsidiary function, performing only those tasks which cannot be performed effectively at a more immediate or local level. Subsidiarity is ideally or in principle one of the features of federalism. The concept is best known as a fundamental principle of European Union law. According to this principle, the EU may only act where member states agree that action of individual countries is insufficient. Okay, so let's assume our global parliament has reached the endgame and settled into place as the primary legislative body for global issues. What powers should it have, and what issues should it legislate on? There are, in my mind, 4 key areas. 1. The environment. It's a rather obvious one, so I'm not going to dwell on it. 2. Baseline education, labour and welfare legislation. Now this is a sensitive one that I'm in 2 minds about myself. I envisage some kind of minimum standard that will be established, but the Parliament should be restricted in its capacity to interfere too extensively. The elimination of widespread industrial child labour should be aggressively pursued, for example, but the Parliament should not be advocating that governments educate everyone to 3rd level for free. Human rights. The UN has already established this, but our Parliament would enforce it aggressively through fines, sanctions and arrest warrants for individuals. There would be a minimum standard and regular inspections carried out in all nation-states to ensure that standards were being maintained. 4. Weapons of mass destruction disarmament. Really, this is more like item 3. I maintain that it should be a human right not to run the risk of being incinerated by a nuclear fireball, or to die hideously from exposure to the latest nerve toxin. Over time, and by that I mean 2 decades tops, nation-states should dismantle their weapons of mass destruction and accept regular inspections from the agents of the Parliament. The Parliament should be constitutionally limited to these key areas, ensuring regional and local issues are hermetically sealed and protected from interference. Now, the big question with any authority, of course, is how can its will be enforced? This is a tough question, but breakthroughs have already been made with the creation of the International Criminal Court, for example. The first crucial step is to criminalize war. At the point that the Parliament represents more than 50% of the planet's citizens and can get a unanimous vote, legislation to directly criminalize the prosecution of war should be passed. The second step is that all efforts to punish human rights violations, the undertaking of war and terrorism, should be exclusively focused on individuals, not on entire regions or nation-states. It has long been established in the West that collective punishment is abhorrent and illegal. What is war but the most extensive and murderous kind of collective punishment imaginable? Individuals commit crimes, not entire peoples. Imagine if we had such structures in place when Saddam Hussein came to power. Would he have been allowed to run riot for 30 years, alternately in the pay of the Soviets, the Americans and the Europeans? The hypocrisy of the foreign policy of the richer and stronger nations, more than anything else, undermines and disrupts efforts to develop and apply genuine global law. You cannot have your cake and eat it. You cannot have one law for everyone else, expect exemption for your arbitrary nation-state, and then react with alarm and surprise as the whole structure that you worked so hard to undermine collapses, plunging you and several 100,000 Iraqis into a deep, dark hole. Witness the bitter irony of the US government trying to restrain Turkey from invading northern Iraq. On what possible moral or legal basis can they make their farcical appeal for restraint? The US has irreparably damaged the flawed political machinery fashioned from the ruins of World War II. We need something new, something stronger, and much more representative. We need a global parliament elected by the people.